Okay, guys, we have a quick pod today. Emery just moved to Pensacola. Obviously, we know what's happening down in the Louisiana area. Just a lot of things going on. There wasn't much Celtics news, so I just figured I'd do a quick mini pod. Probably going to be around 10 minutes when it's all said and done. So we'll keep this just to keep you guys satisfied if this is the only Celtics content you do get. And then we'll be back next week, probably as normal. So, first off, the only real news is Josh Richardson signed it was a 2-year deal, but it's just a 1-year extension of what his contract already was. He already had that player option for this year, so he's already locked in for this year, and then they added an extra year. I don't really think this affects the Celtics a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. I think more likely than not, I think that it's just basically to trade in the future. It's an asset that's going to be easily flippable. Anything between that $10 to $15 million range is what usually is considered like a very tradable contract, just because you can easily stack them to get a better player. I believe Zach LaVine, he's close to the end of his deal. I think he has one more year left after this year, and he hasn't signed an extension yet, which I believe he's eligible. Maybe we get a player like him. Maybe we, just get a first-round picks. We don't have to send a bunch of assets away like the Wizards would probably request if we're asking for Brad Beal. So maybe we get a player that's not quite an all-NBA caliber player, but an all-star caliber player, even maybe like a partial tier below that, I think would really help the Celtics and really could turn them to a contender, as long as Jason and Jalen continue to make that leap, which I expect them to do. They've gotten better pretty much every season, aside from Jalen's third season, where he regressed a little bit from his second season, but that was due to just an absolute log jam, and that was the year very forgettable year for the Celtics, where the final Kyrie year. So, overall, it's okay. It's whatever. I think it's not like it's handcuffing us. That was the big thing early on in free agency, which is a little frustrating now looking back on it. It's like, okay, it would have been cool to sign a couple guys, even for 2-year deals. But it's like, oh no, we need to maintain this roster flexibility. And then we just signed Marcus and Rob, which I love. Obviously, I love them, but I would have loved to have Rudy Gay on this team as well. You guys heard me talking about it. I wanted Rudy Gay real bad. Some other power forwards I think we're signing for around there. A lot of them just got the second year, which seemed to be the deal breaker. And it's kind of frustrating the Celtics wouldn't give up the second year, especially if they knew they were going to sign Marcus and Rob to an extension. So overall, looking back on it, that was something I was fine with at the time. So okay, we'll have a ton of cap flexibility. We'll have a max roster spot open. But now that we didn't do that, it's like, okay, why didn't we just have the second year anyways? So a little frustrating there, but yeah, so that's that for the Josh Richardson news. The only other thing I had was Bleacher Report. I'm not sure if you guys see this. If you guys haven't, I'd check Bleacher Report to look it up. They had hypothetical trades. I don't know if they said they think it would get done, but it's just hypothetical trades. So, and one of the interesting ones, I believe it was the only Dame-centric one, involved the Celtics. And this one it did not make any sense to me from the Blazers' point of view, unless they just absolutely want to just tank for a few years. Because, so this deal is Dame in exchange for Al Horford. You got to have Al in there just to make the money match. Romeo, Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard. Obviously, it gives you a decent young core if you are Portland. Grant Williams, throw him in there. And then it had 2 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. So I think as Celtics fans, we'd accept that deal in a heartbeat. Yes, it makes us a little bit less deep, but then we have an All-NBA, a guy that's been All-NBA first and second team last few years. We have Jason Tatum, who's pretty much an All-NBA player, like a third-team caliber player. He's not quite reached that echelon of top 10 player in the NBA. And we have Jaylen Brown, who's now an All-Star, along with a guy, Marcus Smart's made all defensive teams, and we'd still be able to maintain Rob Williams. The rest of our young core would be pretty much decimated. I'm trying to think of guys that we'd still have left on the roster. It wouldn't be great. We'd have to probably fill it. Our bench would suck. We still have Schroeder. We'd still have Chris Dunn. We'd still have Josh Richardson and Bruno Fernando. So we wouldn't be completely hamstrung. We'd have Canner. But definitely hurt our depth a little bit, especially at that forward position where we're already pretty thin, losing Nesmith and Grant and Romeo, guys that and Neesmith and Romeo that probably can play the 3 quite a bit this year, and Grant that's probably going to get a lot of minutes at the 4. But we'd make it work if this were. Obviously, this, I just don't think it's really going to happen. I think it's just super unlikely. And if Brad was able to get a deal done without, I said first without even including Jalen. If he didn't even have to include Jalen, I'd be like, that's Brad's greatest GM of all time. But this deal doesn't include Smart or Rob either. So if this trade truly happened, which I think it's so unlikely, but just because the Bleacher Report article, they had an article about it, but a bunch of hypotheticals, I am going to talk about it like it's rumored, even though I know it's not. But I mean, at that point, you'd have to hang Brad Stevens pullover into the rafters. So, yeah, I definitely checked that out. They had some other crazy ones too, so I'd check out that article. Other than that, not a whole lot of Celtics news. Next week we'll be back. I know it's been pretty dull with even before preseason starts up. Hopefully next week maybe we can even try and find a guest. Maybe we invite some people on, just do something fun. But I appreciate you guys for listening. It's only been about 6 minutes, but once again, we didn't have a ton of news, but I just figured we'd get a little bit out there. So once again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.